How's it going? My name is Neil Shannon, and I wanted to include you on a project that I'm doing this year. It's going to be a Christmas present for my daughter Aubrey. She's done some terrific artwork over the years, and I've yet to frame any of it. So I felt like this was a great opportunity to do that, as well as post my very first YouTube video on a project that I'm doing. In order for you to determine whether it's worth tuning in or not, I felt like I should show you some of my artwork, some things that I've done over the years, specifically frames. So behind me are a couple different samples. I actually have one here in my hand that I did as well. And this is I really like the picture, and all the frames that I've ever built, I try to complement what the artwork is. And in this case, it kind of had, almost the tree branches spill out into the frame. I have wenge and maple here that I've done. Got a little carried away with this one actually, and you can see I used pennies for the keyhole as well as, holding the piece in. And it's Abraham Lincoln's head, so I cut those out. I'll show you one more piece of artwork here that I'm pretty proud of, and it's my trumpet frame. All right, so this was a piece of artwork that I did for my wife. We went to New Orleans, and I had bought this watercolor painting, which I really liked, but I wanted to do a frame that embraced New Orleans and kind of what it was to us. So I ended up buying a trumpet off of eBay. As you can see here, I cut it up and built it and incorporated it into the frame. Additionally, this is the exterior, the matting's the exterior of the trumpet case. So if you like this type of work, keep tuning in and check out this project that I'm getting ready to start here. All right, so this is the piece of artwork that my daughter Aubrey did. It's a watercolor. She did it when she was 6. And being a proud parent, I think it's pretty awesome. Anyway, the picture frame that I'm gonna do for this is gonna be kind of a butcher block type feel of a variety of different specimens of wood. So let me move this out of the way and I'll show you what we're working with, right? So have some poplar. I like the green hue in this, and when we put some finish on it, it's really gonna pop. I'm gonna use some wenge as well, which is, I really love this wood. This is a bit of tiger wood left over from a shower that I did, which I still need to build a door for. So maybe that will be another future project that I can capture for YouTube. A little bit of rosewood here. And then here's some figured white maple that a buddy and I, we cut up this tree, and I've been sitting on it for a while, and this is a great way to use it. Anyway, I'm going to, all these different pieces of wood are going to be different sizes and shapes, and will be assembled in the picture frame, and I'll walk you through that process now. All right, so the next step in this process is getting all of the wood at the same height. So I'm going to be ripping this on the table saw. I want 3/4 of an inch. I'm gonna even trim up this baby, which is that big piece of maple, to make it manageable and usable for this project. All right, so now we're gonna rip some of these boards a little different thicknesses. So we ripped down a variety of these different woods, all the same height, and now a variety of different thicknesses. And what we're going to ultimately do is we're going to take these and we're going to glue them to a baseboard, something to, to span the entire length of the frame here. So this is just a piece of 2x6 that I ripped a little bit more than 1/2 inch. And we want to make sure the board you're starting with is plenty longer than the picture itself. We may mat this. We're naturally going to cut this at a 45, so it's going to extend beyond the picture anyway. So that's one thing to think about. The other thing you want to think about is when we're gluing these boards down, ultimately to this backer board, we want to make sure that when we're gluing it down, it doesn't extend beyond the perimeter on one side of the board. So it's fine if we're a little short. The goal here is to have a flat edge, which when everything is glued down solid and it's cured, we're going to take it back to the table saw. We want to have this flat edge we can run against the fence to rip a nice straight line. The other thing I'm going to do is, since this picture has a lot of like triangles and a variety of different shapes in here, I'm probably going to, cut some of these boards at an angle. I have some wider ones that maybe I'll make a triangle. So just some things to think about. Okay, so the next step is, again, to cut these boards about 2.5 inches. That's the thickness here. So quick tip is just to put a wood stop. So I just simply clamp this down about 2.5 inches. That way I can throw in these boards quickly, rip them all about 2.5 inches and get through this process and expedite it. So I assembled some of the pieces that I cut here just in this butcher block type theme for the frame. I decided against going, with a bunch of triangles and stuff. I thought it would be too busy, and in fact, I think it looks pretty busy right now. One thing that I think will help a lot is these strips, when I glue them down, I'm probably going to end up ripping this board in half and getting 2 long pieces. So they'll be maybe about 1 inch thick perhaps, and then I'm going to put a border of some of this poplar. Some of this poplar will be bordering it, so it will help break up some of the busy nature of it right now. And I think it is kind of whimsical. I think it's fun. I think it will play in pretty well to the picture itself. Here we go. Ready to glue this up. You can see I just took a little piece of Luan here and pinned it to the back of this strip of pine. Just want to make sure that I have everything pretty tight to the edge and square. I don't want things to be crooked as I'm doing it. And here we go. So I think what's important is obviously we want to get a pretty good glue base down here. I'm just going to kind of start in the middle and work my way out. We're going to spread that out, make sure it's well applied to the entire piece. And then I'm going to glue each side of the block as well. So everything will be down pretty tight and snug. Anyway, I'm going to kick it into high speed here. I'm going to quickly just wipe it clean. Doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to take the top of this off with the table saw. Make sure everything's nice and flush before I start sanding. So we're going to give it a good wipe, and we're going to put down a board over top, clamp it down, and then push from the sides with another clamp. Just make sure everything's really tightly fitting. I will do that in the time lapse as well, and then the other one I'll spare you, but it's the same exact process. I just will be repeating it. Okay, so here goes the clamping, pretty well cleaned up. Let's put down this board up on top just to make sure everything again stays flush down to the baseboard we just glued everything to. That's good. I'm not going to over tighten these either because I do want to push them together from the sides. So it's kind of loose. Bring it in here, and it's a little short, so I'm just going to put in, I don't know if you can see it, yeah. I'm going to put in a couple spacers to get me all the way here to the end. Perfect. And then we're going to crank it up. Pretty good. You can see it's squeezing out little droplets of glue. So I know we're pretty tight. One last little crank, and that should be it. I'm gonna let her sit. I'm gonna repeat the same process with the other one. It's looking now quickly, everything looks glued down nicely to the bottom. So we're in pretty good shape. Hey, back again. Days passed. This is cured, all right? So I like the arrangement of all the wood pieces and the butcher block theme. Needs to be trimmed down, so I'm gonna take the top edge off. I'm gonna obviously cut the bottom edge off. I'm actually gonna cut the face off too to make it nice and smooth. It's definitely not smooth yet. And then I'm gonna rip it in half and get 2 lengths of wood out of this. So we have a couple of these, and this is where it starts to get fun, right? So seeing it come together and then getting closer to the finishing process is one of my favorite parts. Stay tuned. Okay, I guess I'll come clean. That was way too close for comfort with my fingers on that last cut. I was kind of pot committed, decided to move forward. Felt comfortable, but too close. So anyway, I'll be using a push stick from here on out. I like to play golf and a variety of other hobbies. So here's just a rough layout. I did stop at the store, so I am going to have a matting. It's going to go around this. It's going to be like a kind of a cream color and then also a green color. I felt like I'd pull some of the greens out here that are in the picture, and also the green in this poplar, you know, when it's sealed, will definitely darken up some. Pleased with the way the cut came out, right? So nice and smooth, looks clean. All the bonds are pretty close. They are, you know, very compressed, so nice and tight, which is fantastic. And then I felt like for this, I would, you know, go ahead and use just the poplar. So I'm gonna have a piece of poplar here glued to the outside. Again, has that green tone, which I like, and one on the inside. So I will glue this together now. Kind of leaves me about a 5/8 rabbit, which is what I'm gonna need anyway. So I'll glue this together, and then this will be rounded off, etc. Glue this up. Going to apply the glue liberally. Also going to try to get the green, most of the boards with the green facing on the outside and also up towards the top of the frame. So it will go like this. This other piece is going to sit up top and float. So I got to make sure I pin it, you know, close to the top. And when this all glues again, I'm going to take just a tiny little sliver off with the table saw, make sure everything's nice and level. Then I'll get to sanding. So I'll glue one of these up. And then the rest I won't video, just it'll be the same process over and over and over again. I like to slide it back and forth a little bit, gets pretty good traction. That's pretty good. Flipper, same thing, just on the top. This in no way, shape, or form is any advertisement for Lowe's. Just happened to have that outdoor bag handy and wanted to protect the tabletop here. I'm going to do just a touch more up top. Just want to make sure it's liberally coated. Definitely want to see some squeeze out. That should be plenty good. Good. Apply some clamps.
And I just like to kind of just work my way down the board. So we make it nice and tight as we work our way down the entire span. Trying to find clamps with feet on it so I don't dent anything. And one more, we should be good. All right, I cleaned everything up, so I just wanted to do one more real quick video because, you know, I used a wet rag to wipe everything clean, and you can see just how the colors of the wood really pop. It gives you just a little indication of what it's going to look like after putting on some water locks sealant, more polyurethane. Matting from the store today. This is what I'm kind of looking at. I like it. I like the colors. I like the cream. I like the green. I like the way it's coming together. So anyway, going to go now and clean up these frame pieces and assemble it. Get it all ready to put on some finish, hopefully later today, because I'm running out of time. Today's the 20th. You saw from the previous video, you know, these are sealed up now. So I have all 4 of these are done, but they need to be uniform in size. So I'm gonna take them to the table saw. I'm gonna buzz a little bit just off the top, make sure everyone's nice and flush. Same off both sides. I'm gonna take just a bit off both sides and probably take some off the bottom because it's pretty thick. As you can see, it's thicker than I think it needs to be. So I'll make sure all these are uniform. My goal today is to, you know, get the rabbets the right depth and get these suckers put together, you know, with some 45s and glue them up and have it ready to put on some water locks or sealant later today. On to sanding now, right? So a couple things. I cut, you know, the sides, the top, this side, even the back. So anywhere where I cut, you know, I'm going to go ahead and sand. There are some cut marks here. You may not be able to see it on video, but there are. So I'm going to sand every surface that I cut. That's one thing. Secondly, when sanding, you want to make sure you're using a variety of grit sandpaper. You know, something pretty coarse initially. So this is 80. Then we're going to roll to 120, then 180, and then 220. Just ultimately lines you up to have a really nice smooth finish. One other thing that I'm going to be doing is with the butcher block, you know, all those blocks of wood seem to be really tight, but there may be a couple gaps. And if there are, I want to make sure that I can fix it, right? So I'm going to use my palm sander with the bag attachment first, just to capture some of the sawdust. So if there are gaps, again, I hope I don't have to do it, but if there are, I'll have fine sawdust on hand. You can go ahead and mix that with some glue and kind of force it into those gaps, sand it down, and it will look really pretty tight. So anyway, I'm going to start off with this. I do have a vacuum that I'm going to hook up, so I'm not going to be wearing a mask. Also, I took it outside. I didn't want to be in the garage, so should be good ventilation. Finish the one. Just took it through all the different 4 grits of sandpaper. Looks good, nice and smooth. and I felt like you don't need to watch me do the other ones. I'll do them and then report
Finished
back.
with the sanding, and it turned out really well, nice and smooth. As you can see, fortunately, there's no gaps that I need to backfill in any of this material, which is perfect. So no sawdust or glue required. The next step here in the process is cutting out the rabbet to hold the picture and the glass, the backing, everything together. So fortunately, the depth of those materials is about 1/2 inch. This is exactly 1/2 inch. We just kind of lucked out where I glued that on. But I am going to take it to the table saw because I want more of a ledge than just this 5/16 strip of wood. So where I sharpied out, I'm going to remove that on the table saw. Following that step, what we're going to do is take it over to the router, and I'm going to clean up these edges. I'm going to round off this edge, maybe do a flat edge over here. I'm not quite sure, but that's the next step. And then following that, we're going to start assembling it. We're almost there. Okay, quick tip, something that helps me. I just like to organize all the pieces I'm going to buzz through the saw in the same orientation. That way I can pick it up and I know, hey, this is what I need to cut out. It's aligned properly, run it right down the fence and move on. These are the 2 bits I'll be using, right? So one's going to be a round over, that's going to be for the outside of the frame, and this is just going to be a 45 for the inside, just taking a little bit off just to kind of soften the edge a bit. Anyway, going to change these out and move on. Just like I forgot to hit the time lapse, so I routed it without you seeing, but that was 2 passes. It's nice and smooth, like the look of it. I like the rounded edge. And the reason, I should have probably said why you don't do all the material at once. If you're trying to remove that much, like that was 2 passes, which was good, but if you're trying to remove a lot of material, it will bounce, it might splinter, crack. You don't want to do that. So just a little bit at a time. Anyway, I'll be sure to do the next time lapse, which is going to be, I'm going to change out the bit again. We're going to make this a 45, just take a tiny bit off of here, and then we should be well shaped. Turned out pretty well. See the side profile there, got the 45 here, and obviously the round over bit looks pretty good, and even hit the bottom just with a little tiny 45 just to smooth things out. Going to start cutting the 45s and assembling the frame. One thing I like to do is just kind of draw a line as to how I want to cut the angle, just to remind me. Certainly this is the outside of the frame. I want to make sure that I don't cut anything on the other side the wrong way. I don't have enough material, so I need to make sure I do it right. I'm going to go ahead and cut just 2 45s, match it up together, make sure it looks flush, and we'll go from there. Okay, looks pretty good. Don't really plan on making sure all these pieces of wood line up perfectly. It's random as it is. Pretty pleased with that, and we'll continue. Okay, so the 45 looks pretty good. This is just sitting there naturally. Pull it tight. It's a nice fit. I just put the backing in here for the picture. And then what I'm going to do, and there's no real tremendous science, there's probably a better way of doing it, is that's where I want the junction to be, just where I marked that. And then of course it's at this angle. And I'm gonna cut it a little proud, meaning bigger than it needs to be, and then I'll work my way back. And then once I get that proper
properly cut, I just will replicate the same top piece for the bottom and same process over here on the right-hand side. Okay, went ahead and cut that, and we're pretty good. I got a little bit of room there, and I want some room. The person who cut the glass made it slightly bigger than this foam board, so want a little bit of tolerance. Just gonna repeat that process for the bottom, and then we'll figure out, you know, both sides. I have the good board up top, the one that I just cut. Just lining these up. This is nice and flush here. And I'm using the fence to make sure that both boards are perfectly straight and, you know, pushed all the way back. And then we'll just go ahead and mark this. I'll cut it and we'll move on to the side. A good practice here, I just drew my line as to where it needs to be cut. I always like to make just an X on the side that the saw blade's gonna fall on. That way you never get mixed up. How I figured this out. I'm sure there's a better way to do this. This is not my day job. Just lined up here, the backer board, came across, made a mark, just to know the width of this backer board. And then from there, I transferred that mark to the front and then to the top. It's hard to see because it's in the wingay, but just transferred that mark. And then from there, what I did was I said, okay, the rabbet is X amount deep, and I used my little handy square to figure out what the depth was. And then from there, all I did was put it on the side, drew a quick line as to where that is. And this angle, 45, should be basically at the intersection of these two lines. I'm gonna go a little wide of that, but that's a rough way of, you know, finding out where it needs to be. Just a quick video of the rough fit, just using some of these 45 or 90-degree clamps, putting stuff together. You can see it lines up pretty well. The next step here in the process is I'm gonna put some biscuits in here and then glue them together. So let's do that. Okay, I'm gonna test the biscuit cutter here on a couple pieces of scrap. You can see there's not a ton of room here to work with, but I do feel this is a really solid, sound way of putting together these 45s in picture frames. And then I have two different size biscuits, right? We either have the 20 or the 0. There is a 10, of course, I don't have it handy, so it's gonna be one of the two. The 0 is pretty tiny, but it would work. The 20 would be preferable, which I think would work as well. So we're gonna start with the 0. I'll cut it to that gauge, see if it does work within you know, the space I have, and then I'll try the 20 and see what we can do. All right, so here we go. I have these just to put underneath the biscuit cutter to get it leveled at the right height. And you gotta be very careful doing this, especially with a smaller piece. This thing does typically want to hit the wood and run. So I'm gonna brace it really hard, and here we go. The 0 is solid, and that's what I'm gonna run with. There's not a whole lot of room here, you can see. 20, I think, would take it all the way to the perimeter. Just no need, and that's plenty to bite along with the glue and everything else. Should be good. Did all the biscuits. Pretty good. You can see it in there, just fits tight. Pull that together. And getting ready to glue it down. The frame last night, I have to say it was a challenge. I forgot how much of a pain these corner clamps, these silver ones are. They really stink. I know there's probably a jig out there that could really simplify this process. It's been probably a couple of years since I've done a frame. But anyway, I managed to get it pretty well assembled. You can see I used a variety of different clamps here. All the seams are pretty good. I might have to use some sawdust in a little of them, but most importantly, you can see at least the alignment is good on all of the corners. So this one definitely is the worst one. Over here, not too bad. That's actually a pretty solid one. And over there. So anyway, gonna take off the clamps here, inspect, do some sanding, get it in good shape, and then on to the next step, which will be using some water locks. Just out of all the clamps, and it actually turned out pretty good. Definitely some touch up. You can see there's just a couple little areas that need some sanding. This probably is the most egregious corner right here. You can kind of see a little overlap, so I'll fix that up. Maybe some sawdust in some spots. But in general, it actually is glued up pretty well, and it's nice and flat, so there's no wobble when you put it on a table. It's going to sit nice and straight, which is good. Anyway, going to get to sanding. All right, so the sanding went well. This is the worst corner here that you're looking at. You know, things came together. They look pretty uniform in general. There was a little lip here I got rid of. You know, all the routing I did still looks to be pretty well in place, so all that's great. Anyway, I'll show you quickly how I've just backfilled any kind of cracks like this in the past. Take a little bit of glue and just run some right over the seam. Pretty good. We can take our finger, rub this in, try to get it down in that crack some. And then we're going to take our sawdust that we've been collecting. And unfortunately, you know, this is a mix of the variety of wood that I've been sanding. So it may not be 100% perfect match, but this is the process. It will fill this gap. Almost creates like a nice little paste. And we're going to let it sit just for a couple minutes, not anything major. Try to force it down in that crack the best that I can. It's pretty good. All right, we'll let it sit, and then I'm going to lightly sand it, probably with, you know, the 220 grit, and should come up pretty clean and definitely look better than it did. Maybe 2 minutes tops. See how it looks. Not bad. I'm gonna use you know, some sandpaper just with my hand to clean up the corner, but definitely better than it was. And I'm pretty confident that when I put on, you know, the water locks and seal it, that will darken up slightly, so it looks. All right, so finish the sanding on the top of the frame. It looks good. Backfilled all the corners with the glue and the sawdust mix. Pretty pleased with that. And now on to the next step, which is creating some kind of a keyhole here to hang it. I'm going to use a penny. Also need to determine how I'm going to hold the piece in. I don't really want to go crazy and cut out Abraham Lincoln's head like I've done in the past to hold in the picture. It's the 23rd. I'm kind of pressed for time, and I got to get sealing this sucker. So anyway, I just quickly determined, you know, what the middle of this run is. And here we go. Have a bit that fits, you know, it's exact same size as a penny. Looks pretty good. Not really cutting all that great. That should be pretty solid. Not bad. So I'll just drill a couple holes here in the penny on either side. To fix it, I'll throw a couple little nails in there, and then also I'm going to drill out behind this penny, so naturally you can put, hang it on the wall. There's room for a nail to fall through this keyhole I'm going to design. A couple drill bits here, just kind of hollow out this hole behind where the penny will sit. And now I'm going to do the keyhole real quick on the penny, using a really small bit here just to start and get a pilot hole to make sure that, when I use the bigger bit, it doesn't walk all over the penny and scratch it up. I also did pick 2022 because that's the year this frame is made. So here we go. One more. All right, now I'll just change out bits and use a slightly bigger bit. Put the penny in, finish the keyhole, and through a couple tiny little brass screws I had. And so that's all squared away. So I did decide I'm going to use the pennies just to hold this in. I don't have any other thing to use, and it's easy enough, I suppose. While this is all curing and after putting on the water locks, I can cut them out. So now I'm just going to cut a little recessed area so it sits and won't scratch up the wall. Here we go. Getting ready here to start doing the water locks and the finish, and I realized something. Like any good project, nothing ever goes according to plan or completely according to plan. The keyhole, which looks good, and I'm happy I used screws, needs to be relocated over to here because it's a landscape, not a portrait picture. So, I'm pressed for time. Ultimately, I'm probably just going to pull this out, put a regular penny in there, glue it in place. It'll be a memory of the error, and then I will relocate the keyhole there. And then as soon as that's done, I will get to finishing this. We're back in business. Just relocated that hole to where it should have been in the first place. Used some nails this time, little brad nails. Kind of like the look of that. And then just popped another penny in there. It'll do. It's on the back of the piece of art, and it's a reminder, always make sure you have the orientation correct. All right, on to water locks here now. The color's really popping. The product that I've used for a while that I really like is water locks. If you aren't familiar, it's a really good, I think, option to polyurethane. It's FDA approved, so you can use it on food safe type stuff. And it just is easy to work with, goes on really smooth. And anyway, it's a fantastic product. Funny story, I was thinking about, prepping, and naturally anytime you're going to be applying a finish like this, you want to make sure you're working in a dust-free area. So I shop vac and I wipe down this frame, wipe it down with a dry cloth. You don't want to do any kind of cloth with moisture, otherwise it will bring out the grain and then you'll have to sand again. So but I was thinking about this chest I was making for my mom many years ago, and I lived at this condo complex back then, and I always would do these woodworking projects out in the carport, and it got to the point where I finally was ready to apply polyurethanes, what I was using back then, in this carport. And I have this nice butcher block type trunk lid for it and all, and I'm just about done. And lo and behold, a freaking helicopter lands in the court right adjacent to my house. It blows up all this dust and debris and all lands all over my polyurethane I just did. So it's like just a kind of a ridiculous story. I had to sand everything down and go through the process. But it's definitely a testament to the fact that no project ever goes smoothly. It's just how it is. So anyway, I'm going to continue here, and we'll come back after this dries for the second coat, third coat, and ultimately when it's all assembled. I'm going to do a quick second coat here. It has not been 24 hours. That's what the can recommends, but I think the first 2 coats, in my experience, you can kind of knock them out relatively quickly. It's been about a couple hours. So I'll do the second coat here, then I'll let it dry thoroughly. Be back tomorrow, probably early afternoon for the final coat, and let it dry and hopefully be able to assemble it at some point and deliver it on Christmas. Okay, second coat, here we go. Less is more, that's too much. Less is more when it comes to this. Not taking my own advice. If I had a little too much there. So this is typical, Christmas time, last minute projects, last minute shopping. I think I like to build the drama a bit, but this will be a good one. Really been meaning to, put some of my daughter's artwork in frames, and hopefully this kind of jump starts this process. So she has a lot of great stuff, and hopefully I'll be able to capture some more videos down the road here in the near future. So one thing I was thinking as well is that, the reason that I wanted to do any video period is that I've really had some good experiences with watching a variety of different videos from other people out there. Specifically, I've been watching, some boat building stuff. I have a lot of different interests, and it's just been really helpful for me to see what the different approach is, and learn, and what a great resource it is out there, YouTube, wherever, to see some different videos and see what our people are putting together and how creative they are. So I hope that this interests some people, maybe helps some people with some projects they're doing. And I like to do a variety of different stuff. So I plan on doing some other videos that are beyond just picture frames. In the past, recently, I guess in the last couple of years, I'm a big camper. Used to be a big backpacker pre-kids and family. But at one point in time, I decided I wanted to start selling some tents, and ultimately designed a couple teepee tents that I wanted to make. I never had sewed or done anything else. Never owned a sewing machine, but I ended up buying one, and made a couple teepee tents, which turned out pretty good. And I plan on making a third at some point, something that's really specifically made for car camping. We normally go to a place called Assateague Island in Maryland, and that is a fantastic place. You got these wild ponies that are running around out there while you're camping. But normally you also have hellacious conditions. Normally you'll leave and you'll see several tents in the trash. So I want to make a really heavy duty one. That hopefully will be a project down the road here as well. A third teepee tent. I have a shower that I've done outside. It turned out well. I need ultimately to make a door for it so it's fully private, and that will be a project also. I know my wife has some other artwork she wants me to frame, so hoping to kick this off and do quite a few videos. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. About done here with the second coat, and catch you tomorrow. Is Christmas Eve. A little pressed for time here. Going to move on to the penny stage just to hold the picture and all the contents in the frame. I'm only going to do 2 coats of water locks. It's just a little too pressed for time, considering I want to be able to present it tomorrow. I'll come back and put another coat on if needed. I have some Dremel bits, which I'm actually going to give a shot. I'm going to give these a go this year and try to see how it will help with carving out, Abe Lincoln's head. Initially, I'm just going to use a hacksaw to do the rough work. I'm going to try to do this quickly. I have about an hour and a half. I got a turkey smoking on the smoker outside. So here we go. Did 4 of them, turned out pretty good. See if that comes into focus. You can kind of see. So just cut out the perimeter here and did a couple relief cuts. And I'm going to try this Dremel. I'm going to put on some shades for it just in case I'm throwing metal. But anyway, that's where we're at. Took about 5 minutes. Finished up one. And pretty bright there. There you go. You can kind of see the profile. Anyway, that's as good as it's going to get. I have 3 more to do. That probably took 10 minutes. I'm not going to record the others. Abes are in and awaiting the picture. So that's the next step. Bring that down, get it in, and call it a wrap. Finally, finished. So I have the art piece in there. And here's the unveiling. So, yeah, really pleased. Love the colors. It's, I know she'll love it, and another good addition here for the house. So, hope you enjoyed the video, and wish you luck on any projects you have, and hope to, post something again here soon.